hair. That's one of those things that I'm going to be super grateful for when this thing gets back to normal is hair
I know
salons, because this is getting out of control. All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Very special guest today. I'm actually really excited about this particular interview with Steve Green from the United Kingdom. So we're reaching across the pond today. I've got some questions, sort of related, sales-related questions about, how business is different in Europe. In the United Kingdom in particular. But I'm actually really excited because Steve has a degree in applied physics and has spent a lot of time in the thermal imaging space, which is super relevant right now. So first of all, Steve, welcome to the channel. Thanks for taking some time with us today.
Oh, you're welcome, Phil. Good to see you again.
Yeah, same
I'm
here.
Looking forward to it.
So I always love to ask the question, right? So what's your origin story? How'd you get started in this business? And yours is obviously super relevant right now, like I said in your intro. So talk us through, how do you go from a degree in applied physics to being a regional sales manager for Genetec?
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been 37 years since my time at university. Always liked academia and physics and maths and things like that. And my degree course, I did a year in industry. And I worked for a company in Sheffield, where I'm from, originally born and bred, who were one of the world leaders at the time in the field of radiation thermometry, infrared thermometry, so temperature measurement without contact. So you worked with optics and angles and physics and emission and all this kind of thing. So I spent about 17 years around the world looking at temperature measurement in steel rolling mills and glass works and things like this. And then in the kind of 1990s, thermal imaging started to work and become into that industry as portable imaging devices. You could carry them on your shoulder. They became like camcorders. And we used them for preventive maintenance, looking at motors and bearings to find hotspots, things like this. And also gradually people started using them for production processes to detect when things were hot. We've all seen the videos of animals in the jungle and things like this and whatever. Because a thermal imager is designed, they're extremely sensitive. They measure very small differences in temperature. And they manifest those as a color palette from blue to white, blue to yellow. So anything that's hotter than the norm stands out dynamically, very much so. That's how it does it. So started working with things like that as well. And then I suppose in kind of 2000, 2001, I had one of those birthdays that comes up that ends in a zero. It was coming up. And fancied a change, to be honest. And was lucky enough at the time to end up going to work and being offered a job for a company in the UK who at the time were one of the leaders, if not the leader, in digital video recording. So I first came into the industry nearly 20 years ago now, as the digital recording market kind of took off with analog cameras. And then worked through that in the kind of noughties. And then, of course, IP came along and the advent of high definition cameras. And then, of course, the world of software. And through a couple of kind of semi-false starts, with Genetec. I'd known of Genetec for about 10 years, since about 2010, and worked with it through other integrators who utilised the cameras I sold and Genetec software, Omnicast as it was. And then it was great to be given the opportunity to join Genetec in June 2015. So almost been here 5 years.
5 years, you're like the senior guy.
In
Genetec has really.
I think I am, well, apart from one of the SEs, yeah, but I think I am actually.
That's it. I remember my first Connect back in November of 2016, and looking around the table and say, "Well, how long have you been with Genetec? 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 15 days?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I guess we're rapidly expanding." So being somebody with 5 years of experience, and I actually now I'm almost 4 years in. I feel like an expert all of a sudden.
You do. You suddenly get to a point where you understand it. And you have the courage of your own convictions, and then you can evangelize about it. And I think that's the key. We all go through that process.
How long did it take you to feel super comfortable with everything that Genetec has to offer?
Well, it's constantly developing, so I don't think you ever fully feel super comfortable. But it took me about, I suppose, 6 to 9 months, something like that.
Yep, that's about right.
And I remember, because I've always had the same thing. You watch your peers present, and I was lucky to have a few people in the UK in particular, in both the sales side and the sales engineering side. And I was privileged to listen to them present things, and you pick up small pieces, and then eventually you get your pitch, if you want to call it that.
Yep.
And then you get comfortable. And I actually remember being at an exhibition in London in February 2016, so about 8 months in, and suddenly thinking, I get this now. I get the unification piece and how it all, and it suddenly clicks, and then you're confident with it, and then it comes across then you can start to talk to the end users and the partners and things like that. So it was about that, and then it's just been a learning curve ever since.
Now I'm curious, just because I think it's a little bit different in the U.S. versus the U.K. You mentioned that you did a year in industry. Is that normal? Like, do you do like 3 years at university and then a year in industry, or is that because of your specific type of degree?
It was the specific kind of degree. So, the company I went to work for, it was all optics and sensors and Planck's law and Wien's law, all this kind of stuff for emission of energy. But a sandwich course, as it's called, is fairly common because employers like to employ people who've done the academic side, but they've also been in industry as well, so they can kind of work with that. But some of the degrees you do, when you do things like pure mathematics or whatever, you might just stay at university. But I chose to do that, and it was an attraction for me in particular. Right. And I ended up, when I did my sandwich course, the part I did at the end, I was lucky enough to then be offered a job in sales. So I went from being a physics degree graduate to going into sales. I was only 23 years old, something like that.
That's very similar to Matt Holland's story. He went to school for chemistry and then ended up in sales. Like, how does that happen? Like, none of this is ever like contrived. We never say, I'm going to go to school for this and then become a salesman. But now look at us. And then the company that you worked for after your stint with the thermal imaging, was that Dedicated Micros? It was.
Yeah, I spent Dedicated Micros.
So Dedicated Micros, I remember. So I got my start in the industry right around 2000. That was like right at the tail end of analog. Still selling Panasonic AGTL 950 time-lapse recorders and multiplexers, right? Not trying to age myself, but yes, kids, we sold multiplexers back in the day and quads, recording to VHS tapes. And then Dedicated Micros came along and kind of put all that together into a digital recorder. And they had multiplexers at the time as well, if memory serves.
That's true. We still sold the analog ones with VCRs because there were literally hundreds of thousands of those around there. Yep. But then the digital recording took off, and then you got large hard drives available, so you could literally store the typical 31 days onto a hard drive, and it was all about instant picture search and no degradation, things like this. And then of course you started to be able to export video to, in those days, a CD drive, an external CD drive, and then networking, where you could actually have a piece of software, and this was suddenly you had a laptop and an IP address, and you could talk to the DVR and pull video remotely from it. And then that obviously developed then into, I remember IP coming along in kind of 2004, 2005, wondering what it was. And then 2010 was the first time I really got into it with Sanyo cameras.
Sure.
And then it's been IP ever since.
Yeah, and not to spend a lot of time on Dedicated Micros and Sanyo, but talk about two like titans of industry, like great brands in the 90s and the 2000s. And now you don't really hear from them so much anymore, at least not in the US. Is Dedicated Micros still in business in the UK?
It's still there. I think it's more of a niche market now with some of the things that they do, but it's not the mass market that it was. And in some respects, it's analogous to the almost like BlackBerry and Nokia.
Right.
They were the giants of the industry, but things move on, and that's what you find.
Yeah, and I think that there's certain brands that just they didn't see it coming, and just got left in the dust. And just before this call, my daughter asked me like this really interesting question, like from the mouths of babes, right? She's 6. She goes, Dad, why did you go to work for Genetec? I'm like, wow, great question. Well, I wanted to work for the best company in my industry, and this is the best company. And the more I thought about that, I'm like, you know what? And obviously, we're both wearing the Genetec shirts. We live and breathe Genetec. And in one of my prior interviews with Mike Jones, we kind of talk about being like ambassadors of the brand, and we all care so much about Genetec. Like it's part of our DNA.
It is.
This company is so forward thinking. You know, I don't want to jinx anything, but, you know, we're looking 5, 10, 15 years out. I don't see us getting left in the dust like some of those other brands. What do you think about that?
No, it's one of the things that's always attracted me. I think there is, and I knew this from when I first met people, you know, and I first engaged with Genetec back in kind of 2013 before joining them in, 2015. And as I've received new colleagues into the UK, and we seem to do an extremely good job of recruiting people who fit the Genetec mantra, and have like-minded people. We're very good at it. People tend to come to Genetec and stay. We've got a lot of long-serving employees. Obviously, we've expanded rapidly in the last 5-7 years, but we've done that, and it is part of it. And it's one of the things that I always say to partners when you're talking to new partners and end users, is that we're here for the long term. We've got a fantastic executive team, there's no doubt about it. And it's, as you say, we're already thinking 5, 10, 15 years in the future and liaising with, other partner manufacturers, other manufacturers in the industry who've got the same kind of philosophy. And in some respects, if I've got any regrets, is that, I'm getting towards the tail end of my career. Still think I've got several years involved in it. But I'd love to be able to go back in a time machine 15 years because I want to see what the next 15 years is going to bring.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yep, absolutely. I think about that sometimes too. Like when I get to the tail end of my career, am I going to want to step back, or like I think of myself as like a 90-year-old guy looking up at the cameras and saying, "I remember when I used to sell analog cameras."
That's it. That's it. You're as old as you feel. That's the story.
That's it. So getting back to thermal imaging real quick, because again, it's super relevant now. What are the most common misconceptions that you're kind of seeing out there? Like I've kind of taken the approach of everybody needs to kind of slow down and think about deploying this technology for so-called fever detection.
Yeah.
What are you seeing out there? Because if there's anybody that's an expert, it is you.
Well, that's nice of you to say, but you never forget. You never forget what you were taught when you first worked in that. But I think, as I said earlier, a thermal imaging camera is designed to make hot objects in its field of view appear much brighter in visual terms than anything else. That's fundamentally what they do, which is why they're really good for perimeter monitoring applications in core security, things like that. But I think the danger is that people have seen this. They've seen the demonstration. It's a very visual demonstration. And there's no doubt that certain camera manufacturers are selling hundreds of thousands of these things.
Right.
And it would be very easy to take a thermal camera, put it on the front door of your building, your facility, and almost say that everybody who passes through it is too hot, therefore don't let them in through the door. It'd be very easy to do that. But you've got to quantify it. And that's where the calibration of the thing comes in. And with a thermal device, the nearer you are to ambient temperature, the harder it is to be accurate. It's as simple as that. When you're measuring a piece of steel at 1,000 centigrade, it's easy. The amount of energy that emits is far, far more than what you've got at ambient. So you've got to be able to do that. So the calibration comes into it. And also, what you can't really do is point a thermal imager at a group of 50 people coming through a door and pinpoint every single one and analyze every single one individually and pick out the ones that are perceived as having a higher temperature than the others. So you can let 1,000 people through a door in a minute. You can't do that. It's just not feasible. Yeah.
So how important is this thing called a blackbody radiator, blackbody generator, when it comes to using a thermal imaging camera for the purposes that the security industry is looking to deploy them for?
Right. So it's a blackbody radiator. It's a calibrated source of infrared energy, which is what the thermal imaging camera detects typically. So to get absolute accuracy, then you've got to calibrate the device on a fairly regular basis. And you can either do that in two ways. You can either have a blackbody reference source within the field of view. So that is a nominal temperature of, let's say, 35 centigrade, something like that. So that source should be relatively near to the temperature of the object you're trying to detect, in this case, the human skin. So ideally, that would sit there at 35 centigrade, and that would feed into the images. So it's calibrating the level at which it works, because you're looking for a really small difference. 1 degree maybe above the normal skin temperature. So you do that. There's other ways of doing it whereby you can also use a thing called a thermistor or a thermocouple to measure the ambient temperature of the air within the device or very close to the device. And robotics do it that way, for argument's sake. There's like ASIS and whatever use, blackbody reference sources, but you've got to use that to optimize and enhance the accuracy that you're going to get.
I understand. Now, what about how does one grade how good one of these blackbody reference devices is? So like if you do a quick Google search online, here's one for $100, here's one for $500, here's a company selling a full-blown suite of products with the camera and the blackbody and everything for like $1,000 or $4,000. How does one grade how good one of these reference devices is? Because it seems to me that the system is only going to work as well as the reference device is, right? As well as it's calibrated.
It is. It's correct. And I think there's no doubt that, as with a lot of things, you get what you pay for, effectively.
Yep.
So when you mentioned $4,000, and I think that's the kind of level that these cameras are. The ones that we're aware of, that we know are compliant with Security Centre, for instance, they're at that kind of level.
Sure.
Because you are looking for small differences. So you've got to get a thermal blackbody reference source that's stable, that's reliable, that's accurately calibrated. People saying you should check the calibration of these things every day, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow,
feed the input from that into your camera every 10 minutes and check it. That's the kind of thing. So if you're going to use these devices to do something as critical as febrile detection, if you want to call it that, I think the higher end of the market is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously when our customers come to us and ask us about this stuff, Mobotics, ASIS, FLIR, those are the brands that we're thinking of. There's a lot of brands that are popping up all over the place, and it's like I can't make a recommendation there because I don't know enough about the company from like a cybersecurity perspective to make a recommendation, and I don't know enough about their accuracy claims and how long they've been in business and what their reputation is and blah 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 blah. But at the same time, a Mobotics camera might cost $4,000, $5,000. It's a significant investment, and when you're looking to deploy a lot of those, it adds up really quick. And that's just the cost of the equipment. Forget about the cost of the labor and the setup and all that sort of stuff.
It is, and at the end of the day, with Genetec, we're a software company. That's what we are. We're not experts in thermal imaging cameras, but we get asked to act as a trusted advisor, as we often do. Which is the best access control hardware to use on my access control system? What would you recommend? How would you deploy it?
Right.
And a thermal camera is no different. And there are guidelines, and that's what we would do.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's the thermal camera manufacturer's job to sell their thermal camera and prove that it's fit for purpose. And it's our job then to utilize the products we've got within the Genetec portfolio, particularly Security Centre and then Mission Control, to take the alerts, the possible alerts, and use them and define standard operating procedures to take that event and do something with it. That's our expertise, and that's what we've been working on the last few weeks.
So, and last question on this, and this is kind of a loaded question, to sort of take that concept and apply it. So I'm an end user, and I come to Steve Green, and I say, Steve, what do I do here? What is the recommendation? Like, if I was an end user, how would, or if you were the end user, how would you be evaluating this technology for use in your own facility? Yeah,
so I think there's several guidelines, and there's a lot of documentation around. IPVM have got things on their website, and the manufacturers will help as well in using that. So the general guidelines that I've picked up and I've said to people is that you've got to measure this, because you're looking for such small differences. You've got to measure people in a controlled environment. So ideally what you do is, if people are coming into the entrance to your facility, this is a bit like, it's like a triage thing. It's a bit like a metal detector at an airport. If somebody passes through a metal detector at an airport and it alerts and goes off, it doesn't mean that they've got a weapon. It means they've got metal, and then it needs further investigation. So you pad them down or test them with a wand or whatever it might be. And a thermal camera is no different. But you've got to control the environment. So you need to measure the people in almost like a metal detector kind of area, a chamber, which is air conditioned, where there's no drafts, there's no exposure to external heat, there's no windows on there. You paint the facility white so it doesn't reflect too much heat and it doesn't change the emission onto the human body. You measure at 90 degrees parallel to the person. Also, the camera should be within 1 to 1.5 meters of the actual person itself, because the accurate measurement that you should be taking is right in the tear duct in the corner of the eye.
Ah, okay.
And at 1 to 1.5 meters, it's all about pixels on target. And at 1 to 1.5 meters, the pixel will measure that individual little temperature. If you sit back and measure a 10-meter wide area, the pixels are bigger, and then you average it out, because each pixel generates its own temperature. That's how a thermal camera works. Yeah. So if you're too far away, you'll get an average, and so that little hotspot disappears. Yep.
Wow.
So it disappears. So you've got to be at those things, and then if that then generates that 1 degree increase, which is the kind of figures that have been talked about, normal skin temperature can be anywhere between 35.5 and 36.5 centigrade Celsius. So typically the alerts are being set at 37.5. Now, if the thermal imager generates that alert, we can pull that into security center. What we can then do, utilizing the different parts of the platform and even mission control, is to instigate a standard operating procedure, which is then auditable afterwards.
Right.
So you can then say, we've generated an alert, and then maybe even in that environment through Sipelia, our IP intercom scenario, the thermal imager sends the alert to security center. That sends the alert to the security guards or the whoever it might be, the HR team, that says, oh, there's somebody coming here who we believe might be febrile because they've generated an over temperature alert. You can then get Synergist, the access control, to temporarily block access for that person to the building.
Right.
And stop them getting in. And then play a message, either visually or verbally, to say, look, can you please go into triage room number 1? The person goes into triage room number 1, and then a medical professional then goes in that room with a certified medical infrared thermometer and checks the temperature again with their PPE and all this kind of thing. If they still find that they're over temperature, then depending what the end user wants to do, they could send them home or send them to hospital or whatever it might be. But you're documenting all that. And if the person's temperatures then prove that they've then calmed down, they've gone back to normal, you can reinstigate their access control and do this. But you can follow all that through mission control and pull all these kind of different platforms and technologies together. And then you've got a report. And then we've also got the, within Synergis, we've also got our new report, the proximity report, where you can then take that data and say, where else has that person been within the building in the last 24 hours and which doors have they been through? And then from analyze the database and see which other people may potentially been in contact, and then again get them to be tested. So you're minimizing a potential spread of anything, things like that.
Right. I mean, that is a super reasonable policy-based approach using aspects of, right, so we've got a positive read, we send that to security center triggers an incident in mission control, and now we're stepping through a standard operating procedure. Like, this is 100% policy and procedure based, but in order to, before you deploy this system, those policies and procedures need to be thought of in advance.
Absolutely.
Right? This is not something that we're just going to deploy and say, all right, well, let's see what happens. It's like, you need to, you really need to take into account what the policy, what the procedure, what the reporting structure is going to be. Because ultimately, if you're going to tell somebody you can't be here, you're potentially opening yourself up to legal action. Or labor disputes or any number of such things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And some of the thermal cameras work in robotics, for instance. They can play a visual, an audible alert, and a visual alert. on the camera. So if it detects an over temperature, lights will flash and it'll beep at you. Now, in theory, if you've got other people stood behind in the line waiting to come into this cubicle, for instance, do you really want audible and visual alerts going off? Could that cause panic? So turn those things off, and communicate to the person who's been tested to say, look, stay calm, but please go into this room. Somebody will be with you. It's all about those SOPs, and they'll be different for each individual end user and how they do it. We've got the ability to program that within mission control.
And I like that example too, because like if you think about something that you said earlier about metal detectors have been around for years. We know how they work. So if somebody goes through a metal detector ahead of me and it goes off, the likelihood that person is carrying a metallic weapon is probably pretty small. But I know what to look for. Whereas now, the first time I encounter a fever detection system and I see that thing go off, I'm a less educated person on this topic, which is the majority of the population of the planet Earth, might freak out. And oh my God, I've been exposed to potentially the coronavirus or the flu or some other thing. So I think that's a really relevant point. Like if you're going to alert, that almost should be like a silent alert, and pull that person to the side versus setting off the whole work. So Steve, I really appreciate you kind of talking us through that, because I feel like there's so much bad information out there, and people are rushing to market with technologies and with solutions, quote unquote solutions, to solve an issue without really stepping through and thinking about these things. So I really appreciate you taking some time on this one. Now, I wanted to switch topics a second and move back to sales and sort of like the similarities and the differences between sales in the U.S. So I'm the regional sales manager for New Jersey. You're the regional sales manager for the U.K. So let's start there. What is your actual territory? When we say the United Kingdom, what do you actually cover?
Well, I live in the northwest of England. So typically my area is the north of England and Ireland as well. And then I've got a colleague who covers Scotland who recently joined us about 8 weeks ago. And then I've got two RSM colleagues in the south of England, one on the south coast and one on the east. So my main partners and end users are in that area, but we have a countrywide remit. So I've got a couple of major partners with airports that are in the south of England. One of the end users I also work with is one of Genetec's major end users, TJX. And I work with them, and they're based down in London as well. So I travel all around the country. But most of my partners are based in this area, but I do travel all around as well.
Sure. So I'm curious, how is Brexit going to change, or will it have an impact on how you go to market?
I think from a perspective here, we'll carry on doing as we're doing.
Right.
We'll do that. There may be some changes in supply and maybe tax and things like this, but in terms of Genetec and how we take the product to market and how our partners work, that'll carry on as normal.
Yeah,
it may affect say some legal things, but no, we'll be pretty much the same, I think.
Okay. And so, like, how would you normally spend like an average week? Like, coronavirus aside, if this was a normal time, how do you manage the territory? What's your travel schedule look like?
It varies. I mean, we opened our experience centre in the New London office at the start of November last year. So we replicated what we had in Paris and what we've got in Montreal, obviously. And it's been a massive success. I mean, it's literally been full with partners and end users and consultants every day since then. And I've spent a lot of time down there with the partners in the south, bringing them through the experience centre. And I'll do that. I'll go down to London on the train, for instance. I've then got other partners closer to where I live, and I'll go and visit them. And because of the way we work with them, I'll tend to spend a day with them, or if I go to see people in Ireland for a couple of days, things like that. So you'll be seeing not only the owners of the business and the technical directors and the sales directors, but then the sales engineers, the engineers who develop and deploy the business. We'll have end users coming in for demonstrations in their experience centres and their demonstration suites. So I'll tend to go somewhere for the day, come back, then maybe spend some time at home. We're all guilty of doing things in the evening and weekends.
Yep.
So it can vary. Sometimes I can be in London for 4 days a week, that kind of thing. You very much go as you're developing the integrator, and it varies depending what level they're in their journey within Genetec as well.
And so speaking to levels, in the US we have the channel partner program. You guys also have the channel partner program, same levels like certified elite, unified elite?
Yes, we do. Absolutely. Yeah.
How many elite versus unified elite dealers do you have? So I like in New Jersey, I have, I want to say 3 unified elite dealers or channel partners and 4 or 5 elite. So 3 unified, 4 or 5 elite, and then the rest are certified. How does that mix up for you?
We've got in the UK, we have 7 unified elite and 7 elite partners, and then a larger number of certified partners, some of which are new to the program. But we tend to adopt a policy now, as I've been here 5 years, that when a partner comes on into the Genetec partner program for all the right reasons, we would expect them, with the investment they've made in training and certification and sales training and all this kind of thing, that they would look to become an elite partner maybe within 18 months of coming on board, and then unified elite within kind of 2.5 to 3 years. That's the kind of journey we've typically found has worked for us.
Now, do you have a specific program to fast track a certified dealer to an elite dealer? Or are you looking for certain criteria?
Yeah, there's certain criteria. I mean, our model, we deal with some of the big, the global nationals that we deal with, the Convergents, the Stanleys, things like this and whatever. Not mentioning everybody, but those two and others. But our model in the UK tends to be that we work with independently owned, privately owned, medium-sized integrators, 30 to 40 people, something like this.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah, it tends to work, and then they all tend to follow the same kind of policy in that you'll initially approach the owner of the business, and it might be somebody or they may have approached you, or it's a recommendation. And you meet up with them, and you'll talk about the partner program, how we protect people, and the loyalty, and how we develop things, and all the tools that are available. They get it, and they understand it, and they see that we can protect them, and we don't sell to anybody. We sell direct. We don't sell through distribution, things like this. So it's controlled in that respect and managed. And then you'll get typically the sales director, and then he comes on board. He'll then take it to his sales team and then to their technical team. And you kind of waterfall that down through the business, and through a process of sales training and system design training and engineer training. Then they get the first job and get a small one deployed. They see how easy it is. They see how easy it is to work with Genetec and our customer service and channel sales teams and things like that. And gradually you filter that message down through the business. And then they all become Genetec evangelists. They effectively become satellite members of the wrecking crew. Right. And there's nothing better for me than when there's somebody who hasn't quite got the message, and you've kept talking to them and working with them, and then for whatever reason, be it a demonstration that they're privy to, or you spend some time with them picking your brains and understanding things, they suddenly get it, and they go out and get their first system, and it goes in, and the end user likes it, and then all of a sudden they think you're the best thing since sliced bread.
Right.
And when you get that, that's just fantastic. To me, that's just fantastic.
Just like with us, it takes us 6 to 9 months for all these concepts to click. I can imagine for a systems integrator, it's got to be even more difficult, because they're not just selling Genetec, they're also selling, a full bag of tricks, right? I mean, for cameras and access control products and all sorts of other stuff. And not to mention their labor, time, material, all that sort of fun stuff. And then at the same time, they need to learn a very complex product like a Genetec Security Center and all the other modules. So it does take time. But when it does click, boy, is that, for a regional sales manager, boy, is that satisfying to see that sort of progression, because you're right, because then they become evangelistic and they're going out and they're selling Genetec in very much the same way that we would, so it alleviates some time off of our schedules, so that we can train other folks within their organization, maybe some other systems integrators. one of the challenges that I have in the New Jersey market is sort of getting those certified integrators to want to make the leap into the elite status and the unified elite status. I have a lot of folks that come on, and you know who you are, at the certified level and say, well, can you just give me the discount for the unified elite level? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Those folks really worked hard to get themselves to unified elite, which is why there's only 3. But boy, oh boy, would I love to get you to that next level. And you kind of explain what's involved. And some of them get there, but the vast majority do not. Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I think it's like anything. When you look to bring a company on as a partner, you do it with all the best intentions on both sides.
Right.
And then sometimes for various reasons, it just doesn't click.
Yep.
For whatever it might be, and maybe it's the segment they're working in, the geographical area they're working in, and maybe their business model stipulates that they've got to be jack of all trades and master of none. But the partners, the elite and unified elite partners that we work with, and we've got a very close-knit team, there's no doubt about it, here in the UK. And all of my colleagues, the RSM colleagues, work the same way. So our elite and unified elite partners fundamentally lead with Genetec, when it's not only a clean sheet of paper, but even takeovers and things like that. So they lead with it because they understand the benefits and the art of the possible and what else you can start to do. And they've been through the exhibitions and they've been through the experience centre. So we get that, but there tends to be quite clear kind of demarcation between the ones that progress further up the tree to the ones that, for whatever reason, it just doesn't happen sometimes.
Yeah. It's kind of like what Matt said. They're the ones that do really well are laser focus on Security Center and on Genetec products versus the ones that sort of remain certified and kind of like what you said, jack of all trades, master of none. They'll use us where they see fit and not necessarily for everything in their portfolio for a wide variety of reasons, I'm sure.
Exactly.
What are some of the similarities? So thinking of like your top, your unified elite and your elite dealers, what are they all doing that's similar?
They've all got the same kind of, I suppose, business model. That the owners get it, and then the sales directors get it, and the project engineers get it. They understand what Genetec brings and everything like that. They also all tend to be premium level partners with the major camera manufacturers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
As we know, we're open platforms. So in a lot of respects, whatever cameras they use, so long as they're on our supported device list and they give the streaming performance and all the other things that fits, it's not really our thing to change that. But it's significant that the vast majority, in fact, all our elite and unified elite partners tend to be ASIS Gold, Hanwha Premium, things like this, but also use Robotics, Bosch, OnCam, Panasonic, all these kind of things, that kind of stuff. So they all tend to follow that. They all tend to have, good network expertise as well. But one of my main partners, really, who are currently our partner of the year here in the UK, they've got an IT manager who really understands networks, and also even a software programmer who works with the Genetec software development kit to write integrations to third-party systems.
Oh wow!
So, we've got that as well, and that company's also got they've got an experience centre that replicates Montreal's experience centre. And they've invested quite a lot in that in the last 12 months with some Genetec assistance, of course, through our co-op programme. And there's no doubt that when we get customers in there, then we win projects and some significant projects. And we're very good at winning the battles that we choose to fight by doing that. And it's been very interesting with these things, as I mentioned earlier, when you get a customer, an end user in, and often they come in on the back of video, because that's what we're known for.
Yeah.
More than that. So they come in on the back of video, and you do the video demonstration and all the features in Security Desk and all the bells and whistles. But then while they're there, you also take the time to show them access control and event to action, and then intrusion detection and Sipelia and analytics, and then the different kinds of access control product we've got, and the different kinds of camera manufacturers we work with. And there was one very famous instance about a year ago, and the integrator I'm talking about will know who I'm talking about without mentioning any names. And we brought these people in to look at video. And we did an hour and a half introduction, myself and the technical operations director at the integrator. And we were doing this, and we'd been to see them first at their site, and they came in. And we did the usual thing. And then we suddenly noticed that they were all on their mobile phones, texting and whatever. And we naturally thought we'd lost their audio. We thought we'd lost it. And when we stopped, we took a diplomatic tea break, should we say, over here. And while we were having tea and they were outside catching up on their emails, we said to the account manager from the integrator, and we actually said, look, are we doing something wrong? Well, what is it? Well, they're all on their mobile phones, yeah. But what you don't realise is they're texting all these colleagues, all their colleagues at head office to say, you've got to see this. We've really got to utilise this, because they started here and suddenly saw that.
Right.
And they just went, that's what it did. And then we did a massive distribution centre for them. And they're now talking about, COVID-19 notwithstanding, rolling all this out and all the different platforms into their corporate offices and things like that. And that's a big part of it, when people see the art of the possible and what else we can do and bring it into that unified platform.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have similar stories where, an integrator will say, okay, I want you to come with me, do the demo, but don't talk about access control. Don't talk about LPR. Don't talk about they're just interested in video. Trust me, all they want to see is video. And I have to be honest with them. Part of like being a Genetec salesperson is we've all gone through the Challenger sales training and sort of understanding the customer's needs, being able to position value appropriately. And I have to tell the integrator, look, if you're selling Genetec strictly as a video management system, sell something else. Honestly, that's probably going to sound crazy, but we're not a video management system. We're a unified security and operational intelligence platform. We can do all of these things, including video management. But if all you're looking to do is record video, there are plenty of other platforms that can do it a lot less expensive, right? But so then I'll tell them, listen, I'm going to show access control. I'm going to show Sipalia. I'm going to show threat level management. I'm going to show all this stuff as part of the grander vision. And 99 times out of 100, the end user will say, oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, of course I want to marry access control with video, and you kind of nudge the integrator sitting next to you and say, see, I told you so. Now, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was about experience centers. So your integrators set up their own experience centers.
Yeah, they do. They vary from a demonstration suite, and we provide them demonstration licenses to do this. So they'll use it to test new features, new functionalities, upgrades, things like that, so that they're confident with them before they deploy them to the customer, and also for demonstrations to their end users. And then, in particular, one of our partner of the year have invested in an experience center that literally replicates our experience centers in Montreal, New Jersey, Paris, etc. And they've got it's like a mini control room. So they've got servers and security center, and they've actually got two systems there. They've got one that is the demonstration suite, and that's got lots of different camera manufacturers. It's got lots of all our different access control products. It's got intrusion alarms, analytics, things like this. They've got the Kiwi suite, things like this, the retail analytics. But they've also got a separate system that is the system they use to manage and protect their own facility. And then they federate the two of them together, so they can demonstrate federation while they're in their own building. And the number of times that I've been there with them, and they're very proactive at getting their end users through them, not only new end users, but existing ones, to show them all the other things, what is possible, the art of the possible within Genetec. And it's fantastic to see that. There's no doubt about it. And it certainly works when you get people in there and you get them to see what's possible. They might start with video, but then they'll work. They'll go on that kind of migration path and that development path. And as Pierre, our owner, our CEO, says, the consumption gap starts to narrow because they start to use the other features that are in Security Center. And as I always explain, everything you download Security Center, everything's in there. In that package, it's just a case of ticking the boxes and starting to use it. It's all there to start with.
Yep, I try to tell folks it's foundational. If literally all you're looking to do today is to record video, great, but look at where you can be, over the course of time, just by simply making this one decision today to go with Security Center. And I'm going to definitely share, obviously I'm going to share this video with everybody, but I want to share this particular segment with some of my systems integration partners, because some of them rely on our Experience Center, others don't, and they're kind of just doing their own thing. And I think, if more of our partners had their own demo systems, their own kits that either they could do on a mobile basis or in their own facilities, I think that would make them more evangelistic about the product, but also, sort of close that, make their close rates a lot higher. I think that's a phenomenal idea, and something that I think we should take from the UK and migrate it here into the US, and try to give our partners as many tools as we possibly can. It sounds like it's working.
It does. It works. And I think from an end user perspective, as I say to the integrators, it's great bringing people into the Genetec Experience Center and showing the relationship and the support that they've got from Genetec. But surely, in some respects, it's even better when you as an integrator demonstrate and show all that to your end user on your own. Surely the end user would then see more kudos in that, well, I'm dealing with an integrator who really knows what he's doing. He's really bought into this product and understands all the different options.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
Depends which way you do, but we often do a lot of things where the end user will come into our facility first, maybe because they're in London and it's a popular centre, and then they'll go to the partner as well and do that.
So, something you wish more people knew about Genetec, whether it's Security Center or just culturally, like what do you wish more people knew?
I think we hit on it earlier on, where it's more than just a VMS. That's what we're known for.
Right.
And we use this phrase, the art of the possible. And I think that's the big part of it. We've got some great features. And a story I tell, and you may remember this, when I first joined the business, and we used to go over to Paris for your induction. You now go to Montreal for your induction, your sales induction. And I went to Paris and I sat down with the guy who actually gave me my job, Ted Garley. He was a great guy, still working for the business. And we went out for lunch on the first day I was there. We were sat outside on a pavement, typical French, Parisian cafe. And I was talking to Ted, and I was still very early in my Genetec journey, and said to Ted, why do people buy into Genetec rather than the other, VMS platforms and things like that? And he gave this kind of typical Gallic shrug, and he just said, other manufacturers are a side plate. Genetec is this. And he just said that, and it immediately clicked, and I've kept that thought ever since, and I thank him to this day and remind him when I see him. But that is it. It's everything else that you can do. And as I said before, it's all there in the software. So just utilize it. Talk to our integrators and utilize and understand what more we can do and take people on that journey. And then they get more and more from the system and get more than they ever thought would have been possible.
Absolutely. One of my greatest challenges right now, especially in the United States and in New Jersey. Luckily, we've been insulated from this in the state of New Jersey, but in the rest of the United States, mass shootings at schools are of particular concern, and it's a problem. And we're working with the local authorities to sort of create a large federated system across the state of New Jersey in response to those sorts of incidents. And one of the proactive measures that a lot of these school districts are taking is putting in lockdown systems. And one of my great challenges and disappointments in the local industry is that these districts go out and they buy an ancillary lockdown system when they already have Security Center that can do it. And that, I don't want to say I take personal offense to it, because, how is a school district supposed to know what Security Center is capable of? But there is that consumption gap. I wish more end users, and by proxy, I wish more integrators would be a little bit more proactive about extolling all of the virtues, because when you do go in and sell it just as a VMS, that is all it's ever going to be thought of.
It is. I think that's part of the journey. We would say with the elite and unified elite partners, as we always explain to them, you'll never get to that purely by selling video. You might get the odd one who does that, who has some really big video customers. But really, to get to unified elite, you've got to sell video, access control, number plate recognition, intuitive panels, analytics, appliances, the whole thing within the Genetec portfolio. And that's how they then understand what we can start to do.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
What's sort of the favorite feature these days? Like, what do you like? What do you like in the most?
Federation is still a big thing, for me, and what that can do. But then we pick up other things within Security Center, like the dynamic stream selection, and doing that. Although that's kind of activated as standard, it's configuring it and using it. And there have been lots of instances where we've had perceived issues of video display on workstations, and dynamic stream selection has not been used. Then you turn that on, and that starts to work. So that's a big thing for me, along with Federation. And I must admit now, living in the world of cyber risk as we do, and cyber threat, the adoption of the Genetec update service, where we can proactively alert integrators and end users to the latest updates, including Windows updates, so they keep on top of the cyber threats. And then now the camera firmware vault with our major camera manufacturing partners, so we can actually push camera firmware to the cameras through Security Center, through that one pane of glass again, and keep people absolutely at the latest level in terms of minimizing any potential for cyber threat, things like that. So those things are things that are there, and it's still the unification pitch. That's still the biggest thing.
Yeah, of course.
That's what people get. If people get unification, and to me there's some simple ways of doing it, and then you can see people suddenly go, I get it. And you've got them then. They're on the hook and they understand it. And then they break out into the periphery of all the other things we can do. But unification is still, to me, is still the big thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, dynamic stream selection, Genetec update service, firmware vault. These are now 3 videos that I'm going to have to do, and try to find time to do my normal job. But I think we could do a great service to the industry at large just by talking about some of those, because like dynamic stream selection is one of those things that you may or may not know about, but boy, oh boy, that is a performance enhancer. Very simple to set up, and then it runs, but you got to set it up.
It does, exactly.
Yep.
So there's lots of features in there, but there are certain things that to me should almost be de facto introduced and deployed by the systems integrator. But I agree, educating them to use it and the benefits from it. But they're the things, and we look forward to other things coming through in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question: once coronavirus is over, what is Stephen Green looking at doing? The first thing for Phil Coppola, it's getting a freaking haircut. What about you?
Yeah, there's that as well, but I think there's a few things, and I'm English, okay, and I'm from Yorkshire. So what I'm really looking forward to is going to the pub for a beer.
Hey, there you go.
And sitting outside a pub, going and have some good fish and chips as well, which I've not been able to do, and also riding my motorbike. I'm a big biker and doing things like that. So from a personal perspective, that's part of it. But from a business perspective, it's engaging with my colleagues. I've not seen my colleagues for 8 weeks, and we've done Microsoft Teams to death, and we have virtual drinks meetings and things like this, and we've had lots of webinars and training. The partners have been great about it, but there's no substitute them for sitting opposite people and meeting them and looking them in the eye and seeing their reactions and things like that. And that's what I want to do. So I'm looking forward to doing that, getting back around the country again, driving my car, but engaging with the partners again, certainly, and moving that and helping them get back their businesses back to a place where they wanted to be, 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Absolutely, and hopefully this interview and this video, when we do publish it, helps to to close some of that gap, right? At least they'll be able to see you
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
some way, shape, or form here. What's the favorite beer? Like if you're going to the pub, what are you ordering?
My favorite beer. I do like a beer called Wainwright.
Wainwright.
People can Google it. It's an IPA, and that's probably one of my favorites as well. But and I've introduced several of my colleagues to it. I'm particularly fond of an old fashioned as well.
And absolutely, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with that. Well, Steve,
No, so
thank you again for your time. If anybody would like to get in contact with Steve, either for more beer recommendations or to talk through more of his experience in thermal imaging or any of the things that we talked about today, I'll include all of his contact information down in the description below. And obviously, you see his email addresses right there on the screen. Steve, any parting words?
no, just everybody stay safe. Keep well, and we look forward to meeting all our partners globally in the near future and helping them to get their